The lunch rush at Harbor and Glass moved like a steady tide. Bright light on glass, steam from plates, the soft clink of cutlery, and voices low but lively across the room. And Nia Carter slipped through it all, with the care of someone who knew how to carry more than dishes without dropping a thing. She was a black waitress with careful hands and tired eyes, and she had learned to read a table before a word was spoken, the way someone held a menu, the weight of a stare, the hush of a pause. And today the corner booth held Victor Lang, a high-profile CEO whose name lived in headlines and whose smile rarely reached his eyes. And as Nia stepped close with a tray of entrees balanced on her palm, his polished shoe touched her ankle under the table, a soft nudge that could have been a mistake, and she shifted her stance without complaint, moved a half step to the left, kept her voice even and her posture straight, while the kitchen bell rang for the next order. She set down the first plate and reached for the second, and the shoe nudged again, not hard but sure, as if to claim a space that was not his, and she felt the contact like a small shock, a warning she wanted to ignore because the day was long and rent was due, and there were 2 more hours before her break. Yet she kept going, steady breaths in and out, a smile for the guest across from him, a check on the water level. The napkin fold straightened with gentle fingers, and then the third nudge came, just as the tray tilted forward, and the jolt jumped up her calf and set the porcelain ringing, a quick clink that made the back of her neck warm and her face flush with heat she could not hide, and the words left her before she could pull them back, small but clear. "Please, stop kicking me," and the room fell quiet at once. Forks, pausing in midair, a water glass stopped halfway to the table. The espresso machine hiss, fading under the soft hush that follows a sudden truth. And Nia stood there with the tray steady against her shoulder while her manager looked up from the service station, eyes moving from the staff door to the corner booth and back, a hand pressed to the earpiece he wore as if it could tell him what to do. And Victor did not look at her, not really. He straightened his cufflinks with slow, careful fingers and settled back as if he lived in the silence, as if it were a room built for him. And his mouth curved into a polite smile that said nothing at all. And Nia swallowed once and tried to hold on to her calm, because calm had carried her through many shifts and too many nights. And she did not want this to be a scene, did not want to be the story people told over dessert. Yet the moment had already drawn every eye, even from the window tables, where the sun laid thin stripes across the floor. The air felt heavy now, the way a storm makes a room hush before rain, and somewhere to her left, a child whispered a question that a mother answered with a soft shake of the head. And in the open kitchen, a cook held a skillet just off the flame until the orders caught up, and the floor manager smoothed his tie and took 1 step forward, then stopped, a note of worry in the tight set of his jaw. And Nia stood still, with dignity, because she had promised herself, long ago, to keep her voice gentle, even when her heart beat faster. And she could feel that beat now, sure and quick. And the tray felt suddenly heavier, yet the weight helped. It held her steady. She set the last plate down with care, checked the table for space, tucked the corners of the napkins smooth, and when she looked up, she met the eyes of one guest at a time. People who were not sure what they had seen. People who might later tell themselves they had imagined that small sentence that had stopped the room. And Victor rested his phone on the table as if to remind everyone of his place, of the world waiting for his attention. And the shine on his shoes caught the light and flashed before fading again. The manager lifted a hand toward Nia, a tiny signal to move on, to let it pass, and she could have done it, could have slipped to the next table and poured water and drawn the curtain over this moment. But she did not move away too fast, and that choice hung in the air, a quiet line she would not step back over. And the room felt balanced on a thin point, the next breath deciding everything. And time stretched around them like pulled sugar, smooth and tense. And someone at the bar set down a glass so gently the coaster did not shift. and the jazz track on the speaker dropped to a soft piano run that sounded like a held breath. And in that long second, Naya thought of the list in her pocket. All the notes she kept on regulars, and their tea, and the way they liked their bread. And she thought of her mother's morning message, and the promise she had made to keep her head high. And she stood there, not loud, just present, while the room waited for what would happen next, and the world outside the window kept moving, buses and bicycles and the noon sun. And inside everything slowed. And then, from the far side of the room, near the windows that faced the street, wood touched tile in a low scrape, and the sound cut through the hush like a turning page, and eyes swung that way all at once, because it takes only one person to change the shape of a moment, and Nia felt her breath settle as she turned toward the sound, and the manager's hand dropped to his side as he too looked across the floor, and Victor kept his gaze on his glass, as if he alone had not heard. But everyone heard, every server and guest and cook in the kitchen, because something had shifted, small but real, and the afternoon waited to see who had decided to stand. A chair scraped back near the window. That chair by the window scraped back as Selene Ward stood quiet, composed, and known to few here as a self-made millionaire and civic philanthropist. She moved through the still air with calm steps, each one sure, as if she carried a small light that steadied the room. She reached Naya and lowered herself to one knee so they were level, her voice warm and even. "Are you hurt? May I help you step to the side for a moment?" She did not rush the words. She let them land. When Nia gave a small nod, Selene rose and guided her a half step away from the edge of the table, keeping a respectful space, one hand slightly outstretched like a promise, but not a claim. With a brief glance toward the service lane, Selene signaled a nearby server, who slid in quietly with a water pitcher and a clean cloth, a gentle screen that softened the eyes everywhere. Then Selene turned to the manager. Her tone stayed steady and polite. "Let's pause service at this table for a moment to ensure staff safety. Please ask the floor supervisor to review the camera footage and open the incident log." The manager hesitated, caught between fear and duty, then touched his earpiece and murmured a call. A faint crackle came through the radio. "Copy, on my way." Across the booth, Victor leaned back in a relaxed way, trying on a smooth smile, as if a soft voice could close the moment, like a door. "No need to turn this into something large," he said lightly. "Accidents happen." Selene did not argue with him. She did not trade lines. She simply lifted her gaze to the small sign by the host's stand, white letters on deep blue that read, "We value a safe space for guests and staff. Disrespect is not served here." "The code of conduct is posted for everyone," she said, almost as if she were reading it to herself. "Today, we honor it." Then she looked back to Nia. "Would you like some water? We can stand here as long as you need." A server set down a glass. Selene thanked them with a nod. Naya took a careful sip, her hands unsteady, the ice tapping the side of the cup like a clock. The floor supervisor arrived, notebook ready, eyes kind. "Time and place noted," he said. "We'll review the footage and record your account when you're ready." Selene's aide appeared at the doorway, slim bag over one shoulder, moving with quiet purpose. She offered a small first aid pouch and a printed card with a worker support hotline in clear, bold type. No cameras, no raised voices, just tools. Selene kept her voice low. "Any pain in your ankle? Any numbness? May I look for redness?" She waited for Nia's nod before she even leaned closer. Victor tried again with easy charm, but it had nowhere to land. The room had changed shape. People turned back to their meals, yet their attention hovered, ready to return if needed. The manager, steadier now, placed a placeholder check on the table and told the guests their meals were covered until service resumed. The kitchen carried on at a softer pace, the hiss of the pan gentle, the rhythm held back a beat. "This is not about blame," Selene said to no one in particular, and everyone at once. This is about safety and respect. Nia's breath grew more even. She stared at the glass, then at the small hotline card, then at the door that led to the staff hall. Worry crossed her face, worry for her schedule, for rent, for what happens when a person speaks. Selene saw it and answered the worry before the words were there. "You don't have to decide anything now," she said, and the kindness in that sentence made the space feel wider. "If you want, we can arrange a short break and a quick check with the first aid kit. We can write your account later, or not at all. If you choose to speak, I'll make sure it matters." The floor supervisor gave a small nod, as if to seal that promise. Selene's aide stepped back to give more room. The jazz from the speaker rose and fell like a tide that had decided to stay gentle. Through the window, a bus slid past in a quiet blur. Selene reached into her bag and took out a simple card with her name, a phone number, and a short line that said, "We build safer rooms together." No title, no flourish. She held it for a second as if weighing it, then offered it palm up, giving Nia the choice to take it or leave it. Nia looked at her, at the card, at the calm that did not ask for anything in return, and she reached out, fingers trembling from more than just shock. Selene pressed a card into Nia's shaking palm. Selene's card warmed in Nia's palm as the dinner crowd thinned and the neon sign blinked to life outside. She finished her last table with careful grace, handed off her apron, and stepped into the evening air. The street smelled like rain, even though the sky was clear, and the florist next door had propped the door open, letting a soft scent drift toward the cafe tucked beside it. Selene waited inside at a small round table, a glass of water set across from her, and a napkin folded like a quiet welcome. Nia sat down and felt her phone buzz. It was a voice note from her mother. She pressed play, heard the gentle voice that always steadied her, then pressed play again, letting the tender sound take root. When the note ended, she tucked the phone away and met Selene's eyes. The room had a murmur of cups and low talk, the kind of sound that makes a person feel safe enough to breathe. Nia began with small truths, because small truths were easier to carry. She talked about the tiny notebook she kept in her apron, how she marked the way Mr. Lopez liked extra ice, and how the couple by the window always asked for a booth when they could get it, and how she kept those notes, because care lives in details. She said she dreamed of studying hospitality management, of learning how good rooms are built, not just how tables are turned. She said dignity at work should not feel like a prize you only get on lucky days. Selene listened without interrupting. She nodded now and then, wrote nothing, and kept her hands still on the table. When Nia paused, Selene told her a plan in plain steps. If Nia agreed, they would file an incident report with the restaurant's owner, so there would be a record. The foundation would pay for a medical check to make sure Nia was okay. They would connect her with an advocate who understood workplace policies and could guide her without pressure. If Nia wished, they would also notify the ethics office at Victor's company and send a note to the board. Because codes of conduct travel with a person, not just within office walls. They would do it quietly and clearly. "I'm not after headlines," Selene said, her voice calm. "I'm after better rooms to work in." She then offered something more. Would Nia help design a new project called Dignity in Service? It would build emergency grants for workers in crisis, offer short trainings about safe practices for staff and guests, and create a confidential reporting pathway across partner restaurants so no one had to face a hard moment alone. Nia looked at the neon wash on the window and felt a knot inside loosen. Suspense lived under her ribs, but it had changed shape. It was no longer the fear of a foot under a table. It was the edge of a choice. She thought of rent, of her schedule pinned on the break room board, of faces she served every week. She also thought of the manager's tight look and the hush in the dining room when everything had gone still. She wanted her future to be made of better days than that. She placed her hands on the table to stop them from shaking. "Okay," she said, and the word felt like a door opening. Selene took out a slim laptop and slid it around so they could see the same screen. Together they wrote the facts. Time, place, action. No extra drama. Just what happened and how it landed. Naya kept the sentences even and clear. She read them out loud once, then traced the lines with her eyes again, fixing a comma here, a date there. The cafe's barista dimmed the lights by a small turn, and the neon sign blinked twice like a heartbeat. Outside, someone laughed, a clean sound that made the quiet inside feel stronger. Selene read the report one more time and nodded. She emailed the advocate's introduction note and pulled out a small envelope with a card for the clinic. "This is covered," she said, tapping the envelope. "Use it when you're ready." Nia breathed in and found her balance. She opened a new message to the restaurant owner and attached the report. She added a short line asking for a policy review and a brief meeting when convenient. Then she drafted the ethics notice to Victor's company, plain and respectful, citing the conduct policy on the company's own website. The cursor blinked at the end of her name like a tiny pulse. She hovered for a long second, feeling the weight of what this click could change. The unknown stretched ahead, wide and unwritten, but the room did not feel lonely. It felt like support. Selene's steady gaze rested on the screen and then on Nia. "Whatever happens next," she said, "we walk it step by step." Nia gave a small nod. Her breath came easy. Her hands stilled. Nia hovered over the keyboard and clicked send. The email whooshed into the world as the cafe door chimed and the barista flipped the sign to closed. Nia watched the sent message icon fade, then placed both hands flat on the table, as if holding steady the next hour of her life. Selene closed the laptop and said they would wait together. They did not wait long. The first reply arrived from the restaurant's owner, a short message sent with speed and care, an apology to Nia, a promise to pause and refresh policy training, and a guarantee of paid time to recover, no questions asked. A follow-up scheduled a listening session for the staff, with clear words that Nia was welcome but not required. She chose to go. The next afternoon the team gathered in the back dining room before opening. Chairs made a loose circle, and the air smelled like citrus cleaner and warm bread. The owner spoke first, voice steady with regret, then asked for stories, not blame. Nia shared one moment, just enough, the tray, the nudge, the sentence that stilled the room. She did not explain herself. She did not have to. Around her, coworkers nodded, eyes meeting hers in small flashes of recognition, as if saying, "I have been close to that line too." The circle held a long, brave, quiet, and then the session shifted to how to repair. Clearer steps, posted standards, a signal staff could use when a table felt unsafe. Meanwhile, Selene's foundation moved with quiet speed. Neutral advisors were contacted to help the industry adopt a simple pledge with a clear name: safe staff, safe guests. Early signers would receive training toolkits, a script for hard moments, and access to a rapid response fund for emergency needs. Some owners hesitated, weighing image against effort. Then the first diner signed, then a cafe on the east side, then a hotel restaurant with a busy lobby bar, and momentum began to gather. While this grew, Victor's company board opened a private review, away from cameras and noise. The message that filtered back through formal letters was plain: leadership is conduct. Victor issued a formal apology to the restaurant and to Nia, and he agreed to complete industry-standard training. The focus stayed on principles, not spectacle, and the quiet tone made people listen closer. Nia carried that quiet with her when she visited her mother 2 nights later. She brought a small bag of groceries, tucked a fresh loaf under her arm, and rang the bell with a smile she had not felt in days. In the soft light of the kitchen, her mom squeezed her hand and said, "I know your heart. Keep it steady." The words settled in Nia like anchor and sail at once. After that, invitations began to appear, not loud, just steady. A community college asked if she would speak with student servers about confidence and care. A labor clinic requested her help in testing policy language for clarity and kindness. A boutique hotel offered weekend shadow hours with a manager who believed good service begins with safe staff. Nia did not chase everything. She picked what nourished, not what drained. She learned how to read a schedule that protected rest, how to say yes to growth and no to noise. She practiced walking through a lobby with a manager's posture and listening to a kitchen line with a teammate's ear. The pledge gained more partners. The Rapid Response Fund helped a baker whose car broke down and a hostess caring for a sick child. Yet, an edge of suspense stayed, the sense that the first big test would arrive when no one planned for it. One evening, standing beside Selene in a bright room that smelled of new paint and fresh coffee, Nia looked at a small stage set with 2 microphones and a length of ribbon draped across a small stand. The sign behind it carried a name that had started as a hope and become a plan. Then a place with walls and doors meant to open wide for workers who needed a second chance and a steadier shift. A ribbon waited to be cut in front of a sign that read, "Second Shift." That ribbon fluttered as Nia raised the scissors. Selene by her side, staff clustered close enough to feel like family. The room held a small breath as steel met satin, and when the ribbon fell, the sound of applause rose like a soft tide. Not loud, just full of hope. Lights glowed warm across the new sign, "Second Shift," on the wall near the host stand. A simple promise was posted in clear typefair schedules, respectful service, and support when life happens, and people paused to read it the way they might pause to look at a map before a long walk. Nia stood straighter in her new badge, program coordinator in training, and set a small bell on the counter with careful hands. "This isn't for summoning people," she said, smiling, voice steady and bright. "It's for celebrating kindness." Laughter eased the leftover nerves, and a cook in a crisp jacket rang at once for a server who had stayed late to cover a coworker's bus delay. The chime was crisp and clean, a promise made into sound. The first guests stepped in with curious eyes, and just underneath the welcome hum was a quiet question: could they keep the promise when the night grew busy? When small tests came in quick steps. The team moved like they had practiced, because they had. Schedules on the back wall showed rest blocks highlighted in calm colors, and a small office held a cabinet labeled Care, where grocery cards and transit passes waited for the hard day no one plans. Nia checked on the front, on the line, on the dish pit, not as a boss but as a steady hand, and then she guided 2 new hires through their first hour. One was a single parent named Amara, who had a morning school drop-off taped to the inside of her wallet. The other was Jonah, fresh from culinary school, eager and a little quick with his hands. She showed them the notebook she still kept, the one full of guest preferences and little human notes, and she tapped the first page. Were people first? Always. The bell rang again, this time for the dishwasher who covered an extra rack without being asked. A late reservation called to say they would arrive early, and a small note of tension ran through the room. The soft suspense that lives inside any new start. But the host found a solution. The kitchen breathed together, and the wave passed without breaking. Near 8 o'clock, a man entered without fanfare, and stood by the door, as if unsure whether to step in. Victor had chosen a night without cameras or news, and his eyes did not roam the room. They settled on Nia, and stayed there with steady attention. Selene met him halfway, exchanged a few quiet words, and then Nia joined them. The staff glanced over and then looked back to their work, trusting the moment to the people holding it. Victor offered a sincere apology to Nia and the team, not sweetened, not edged, just shaped by care, and he followed it with a contribution to the Dignity in Service Fund. It was not the point of the night, and no one made it the point, but it mattered that it happened, and the bell rang once more. Not for him, but for the steady work of courage that had brought them all here. When the rush settled into a gentle hum, Nia walked Tamara and Jonah through small choices that build safe rooms. How to offer options without pressure. How to read a guest's face with respect. How to step away and call for help in a calm voice when something felt off. She showed them the quiet hand signal by the espresso machine that meant, "I've got you," and the way a teammate would nod and trade places while the supervisor approached with a friendly smile. A guest snapped fingers once for service, and the host came near with a warm line from their training. "I'm glad to help. We use names here," and the habit dropped away like a pebble in water. Later, as music threaded through conversation and plates came back clean, an elderly couple arrived at the door. Nia opened it and helped them inside with gentle care, noting the slow step, the cane's careful tap. She carried their coats as if carrying a story, and when they settled, she placed water on their table and told them there was no rush tonight. She did not brace for harm anymore. She built spaces where it did not fit, and the room itself seemed to know it. Another chime lifted through the air for a line cook who noticed a gluten-free request before the plate left the pass. A server tucked a thank you note under the bell for the barback who caught the mistake. Toward closing, Nia walked to the staff board with a photo in her hands. Her and her mom in the kitchen at home, laughing over a bowl balanced on a dish towel. She pinned it at eye level where everyone would see it before a shift and after one. And she wrote a caption under it, in clean, careful print, "We deserve rooms where everyone can stand tall." She stepped back, took in the faces around her, the soft light, the bell waiting to honor the next small act of care, and she felt the shape of the night settle into something strong and good. No one here will ever have to plead to be treated gently again.